Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Community Exchange podcast, where we talk to friends old and new about their careers and the future of the media industry. I'm Matthew Scott Goldstein, better known as
MSG.
Thank you, Jen. As always, the Community Exchange podcast is brought to you by OpenWeb, the company building a safer, fairer, and more trustworthy internet. Now, we have a great conversation with Jen. Okay, Jen, you're at Condé Nast, and I have to read your title because it's super long. You're the Vice President of Global Partnerships and Business Development at Condé Nast.
That's right.
Now, before we talk about Condé Nast and everything in the world, let's talk about how you got there.
Okay.
And let's go way back to your days at iVillage.
Okay.
And let's make a connection because there's someone sitting in the seat a couple months ago, Rich Cacopolo, who you worked with at iVillage.
I did work with Rich at iVillage.
And you went to Cornell with him.
And I went to Cornell with him, although not quite at the same time.
Oh, he's a little older.
He's a little older, and Rich joined iVillage as the CTO. I joined iVillage as the entry-level business development person. It was my first job right after being a management consultant. And
so you're doing biz dev your entire career.
Yep. I started out as a management
But you never went into sales. You went into biz dev, which is...
I always went into strategic partnerships.
Okay.
And at iVillage, at that first job, iVillage was really like one of the founding women's internet brands. We're talking about 90.
Were there a lot of women working at the company?
There were a lot of women working at the
company. I worked at Nickelodeon back in the day in 1990s. And I recall, in hindsight, there were meetings. There would be me and 22 women.
Yeah.
And I thought it was absolutely normal.
I have that experience at Condé Nast also, but at iVillage, it was founded by Nancy Evans and Candace Carpenter, two women.
Yep.
And they brought on a powerhouse team of women, mostly content creators, editors, to create these women's communities. This was like when AOL was like where it was at.
Okay, now we're dating ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
A little bit. And these offline communities. And then, that brand at the time was really like, we're talking like there was no Facebook yet. There was no internet communities. iVillage was one of the core communities on the internet.
And they had communities, and I remember the horoscopes quite clearly.
And content, and my job there was to do strategic partnerships for them. And at the time, we were doing things like commerce and video and...
Well, but this was 20-some years ago before most companies were doing these strategic partnerships.
And the internet and the users weren't even really ready for all of it yet.
The only strategic partnership I remember from back in the day was doing with AOL.
Yep. We had AOL. We also did the first partnership with Google for AdSense. It was really, early.
Okay. So then so at iVillage, you were there, 7, 8, 9 years?
I was there for 7 years.
And then you...
Started as an entry level, left as a vice president.
Okay. And same thing, partnerships.
Partnerships, but along the way, it was a little operational also. So because we were doing new businesses, we would stand them up, and then I would have to build a team to run them. So one business we ran was a private label vitamin line. We were trying everything, right? It was before iVillage was acquired by NBC, we were really trying to find ways to make money in addition to advertising.
So there's a pattern here. So we got the name of the episode already, Andrew. Yeah. It's trying to find new revenue streams. So she's always been trying to find new revenue streams, which is fascinating. Right. I think you're the first person sitting on this chair who I'm having this conversation with.
Oh, that's good, because I think that is a really important theme of my career. And I think it's because I've always been attracted to companies that were a little bit startup-y, which might sound strange because we're going to talk about the fact that Condé Nast, but I'm going to explain to you why.
Okay.
That's not quite true with respect to what I do or why I joined. But I've always liked the challenge of okay, here's this amazing content and being kind of a partner to these amazing creatives, but trying to find the way in to make money or a business opportunity out of the incredible content that people are creating.
Right. So when you go to your bosses, you go, I have a deal that's going to make us X amount of money.
Right.
They're bring it on, Jen. Thank you very much.
But I've always been lucky that my partner in crime on all these things has been amazing content and amazing content creators. So I always had that to work with.
Right. Because without the great content, you cannot get money from anyone.
Right. So at iVillage,
as Summer Redstone always says, content is king.
It really is. At least that's what I found. So I was there for a long time.
And then it was acquired by...
It was acquired by NBC. Maybe that was 2006.
Okay.
We should go back and listen to Rich's episode to get the dates better.
2006.
But
and then you stayed for how long?
I stayed for a year.
Did everyone stay for like a year? Then they all just
Rich
went.
left. I stayed. It was interesting for me, actually. I wanted to see what it was like to work at NBC, which was part of GE at the time.
Okay.
I actually really enjoyed that. It was like Lauren Zlasnik was running the overall group.
She goes to my synagogue.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, and it was just a really good opportunity for me to meet those people and work with them, and also like be exposed to a more corporate environment and kind of learn.
Because
some of those
iVillage was a
skills.
small little nimble startup. You know,
Totally.
from one extreme to the other in the entertainment
Totally. Even
space.
though it was public, it was still
Yeah,
really
it was
startup
small.
culture. And then I left. I left because I got a call from Samir Arora.
I do not know that person.
He was the CEO of a startup called Glam Media, which
Okay.
was a fashion blogging network. Nobody really knew about it. It had like, maybe 40 employees at the time in the Bay Area. And he was looking for someone who had experience working with women's media. And we had a conversation. And what I liked about what he was doing, because at the time he was really trying to build blogger networks. This was like
Well, blogger networks really influencers or creators, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And at the time, right, people were not publishing on Instagram and TikTok yet. So bloggers was like where content was being created. And he had made this collection of fashion blogs and beauty blogs. And he wanted someone to come in and do deals. So I came in.
How many big bloggers did they have that had strong followings?
When I joined, it was mostly small blogs. When I left, we had built the network up to like 4,000 creators.
Okay.
Including huge ones like the Daily Mail in the US. Like we actually were working with pockets of inventory before they had built their own sales teams.
Okay.
And Food 52. Like we really were able to get in every vertical a couple of really premium brands and then a lot of other kind of emerging creators.
And who'd you do the deals with at Glam?
Well, I started out doing BD and there was a separate publisher network.
Okay.
And then after we did the fashion and beauty network, they were like, can you move over to this other role, running the publisher network and build out different verticals. So I built out a food vertical, a men's vertical, an entertainment vertical, a parenting vertical, and then we went global.
Okay.
So the deals it was very different. It was like, instead of working with platforms, I was working with individual creators, actually building up what was ultimately like a content and ad network. It was my first opportunity to really learn about ad tech and to learn about how to build scalable operations, because in order to support these 4,000 deals, we had to build up the entire stack. But ultimately, it was about, in a way, it was very like forward thinking, because nobody had yet validated that creators and individual publisher content was worthy of advertiser dollars.
Okay. And because it was UGC, right?
It was
user generated
UGC.
content, which had a bad
Right.
connotation back then until it evolved to being okay.
And we built this Glam Media website to kind of professionalize it, but then we also worked with them to standardize the ad formats and do beautiful creative. And then we really broke through and created a very nice business, branded content, media for all of these publishers. Why Glam didn't succeed in the end was the internet was moving faster than Glam was.
Right.
And
How many people at Glam at the time, at the peak?
maybe 500 or 600.
Okay.
I mean, there was a time that it had a monster valuation. They raised a ton of money. It had like a $1 billion valuation, which at that time was
Crazy.
humongous. They bought Ning, if you remember that
Yep.
social media company. But it was a little bit of the market was moving quickly to other platforms, right? The thing that has happened to
So
many.
you were the platform before the other platforms emerged and just
Right.
blew up the entire industry.
Exactly. And then as Facebook and Instagram and influencers started moving off of hosting their own websites,
Right.
it was much harder to be an ad
In
network
some ways, you
aggregating.
were Raptive before there was Raptive.
Yep. But it was, for me, a great experience. It was a real build experience. And it was a chance for me to learn how to do deals with people who were their own businessmen, people who were running their business, and companies that were, had infrastructure and had lawyers and had capabilities. So that was fun. And I left. Oh, they changed to Mode Media along the way.
Why would they change the name? Never mind. Move on.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay, so then you left Glam, and then you went to work for the big sucker, Condé, right?
Right, but
Oh, there's a button there. Okay.
there's a but, because I said earlier, I love startups. So when I met Joy Marcus, who I'd met through deal making along the way.
Joy used to be at Viacom. I worked with her there.
Yep. She had just joined Dawn Ostroff over at Condé Nast Entertainment,
Okay.
which was a new division of Condé Nast,
Okay.
whose mission was to kind of reimagine these
The iconic.
historical brands through the lens of film, television, and digital video. And it was a separate business. And it really was a startup. And it was like
Who was the CEO of Condé at that time?
Bob Sauerberg.
Okay.
So for me, I was like, wow, this is an opportunity for me to work in a startup vibe, but with these brands that I love and have tremendous respect for. So I was really excited about it. I'd never worked in video before, and that was kind of the crux of the job. I'd really spent a lot of time with ad tech and content. So I was like, okay, seems like a really good opportunity. So I joined as the head of business development for Condé Nast Entertainment.
Okay.
Vice president. And we started looking at what does storytelling mean for all of these incredible brands? Not just taking the amazing content that Vogue was making, the amazing content that Bon Appetit was making, and copying it into video. We were building brand new entertainment brands and brand new content.
So new brands, and also taking the existing brands and making different types of
correct
content.
Like really building out a unique. When I say original content, I mean like the same brand.
Right.
We did have some original brands also, but that turned out to be harder than.
It's always harder.
Yeah. Like in the end, our existing brands are the ones that won or are winning right now. But we didn't just kind of rip from the magazine and turn it into video. And before we knew it, we had a really successful YouTube business. We had decent content budgets. We had just like,
and I believe that you had a big YouTube business where YouTube was giving or paying Condé Nast the premium CPMs.
Well,
and
we also, in addition to having incredible creative, Condé Nast also has incredible sales people. And nobody can sell Condé Nast better than the Condé Nast team.
Great direct sales team.
Great direct sales
Led
team.
by my good friend who just left, Craig.
He's great.
Yeah.
So I think in addition to having good monetization from YouTube, we actually sell our own advertising. And that has been one of the keys to our success in digital video and actually in a lot of the partnerships that I do.
Right.
I really try to.
And Condé sells direct advertising at an extremely high CPM.
We do.
Yes.
We do, because we know the audience, we can use our data and our insights to create a lot of value for our advertisers. And we also work with advertisers to create advertising. So that's also, I think, something special that we do. When Condé Nast makes the ad, it's different and it feels different and it works better around our content. So we started out with YouTube and we had a really successful business there. It really grew and it became kind of like one of the big shining stars of Condé. And then FAST was emerging. The FAST space.
Okay, and FAST is for
free ad-supported television.
Thank you.
And the connected television world,
which is emerging. Tubi and
Pluto, and Samsung TV, and Roku. And in my role in business development, it wasn't just about making sure we were growing. It was always about how do we take, as the market is disrupting, how do we create opportunity?
And also, this is a theme: new revenue streams.
New revenue streams, and also how to adapt in a disruptive market and win. Because if Condé didn't pivot to video, we would have been left behind.
Okay.
Video was.
But many other companies pivoted to video to no avail, and it all flamed out and failed.
That's true.
Condé is one of the few success stories out there that made video and did it well.
And I think that's because we had good content, but also because we always had a business minded approach to
Okay.
it. I think the companies that maybe just publish content on Facebook in hopes that
Right. It wasn't
the
making
business
video
would
for video's sake. There
follow.
was a business model there.
Right. It was like, how can we go where our audiences are authentically, but then really think strategically about how we make money in those places and how we can partner with those platforms to do that. And it certainly required a partnership with the platforms because most of the platforms don't have or didn't have an out of the box formula for monetization. YouTube does, but even the way we work with them is special and bespoke.
Right.
So we had a YouTube business, and then we decided to try our hand at fast. We knew our Bon Appetit.
You made your own channels.
We did.
Okay.
We started with food, did a little research. We knew Bon Appetit had a tremendous library. We launched a Bon Appetit 24/7 free ad-supported TV channel, which really kicked us kind of up a notch in terms of like what our video game was.
It's kind of cool.
To the market, it was great. We followed on the success of that with an Architectural Digest channel. And we've kind of experimented with other things as well, including doing, some live streams for some of our big events, like the Met Gala and things like that. So we have, our VOD business, we have our fast business, and we have our kind of live stream business, which is all things that Condé Nast Entertainment really helped create, and they've been really successful for the company.
Okay, so from there, how did you morph into sort of the stuff you're doing now in Condé world with Gen AI and Snap and everything else? Is that what?
Well, I will say before we get to Gen AI,
okay,
right? The market kept disrupting because then it was TikTok,
yes,
and Instagram, and so as our audience actually, even as YouTube, a little bit constricted, or I could say it migrated. The audience was moving from kind of regular YouTube to Shorts. Again, we had to adapt what we were doing. So rather than just like take our content and cut it down, which isn't the Condé way to just like adapt, we really think about the platform.
Well, it's also now it's vertical video versus
vertical video, which we can cut and we do, but we built social studios. We like really were very thoughtful about the places that the content was going, and we created content for those platforms. So, before long, we had a very substantial TikTok business. And then we were able to be one of the launch partners for the Pulse Premiere business, which is the monetization of our content.
On TikTok.
On TikTok.
Okay.
So just like we do.
And because Condé is such a marquee brand, you get yourself at the table with these premium CPMs.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And it's my job to kind of create relationships with the platforms and bring them enough value and enough amazing content that it's worth it for them to come to the table and find a way to make money with us. Because
it's a pretty cool job, though.
It's a great job because I'm so blessed to have all this incredible content.
Right, you have great content, right?
Yes, and I have amazing,
because
IP to bring.
I assume there's 100, 200, 300 people like you going to those platforms with not great content, trying to get them to do a deal, and you're coming like, I got really good content here.
Right. I think that is my luck. That is my luck because we have great content. We have, we're thoughtful about the platform and the way, and also we have success. So like, I don't go and try to do it before we're successful. We make a little bit of an investment. We take a bet, but we also are smart about the bets, which I think is kind of, as we talk about AI, like also how we're thinking about it. We did not endlessly put our content on Facebook forever. Like we tried. And then once we were not able to be very successful there financially.
So that's it.
We just deprioritized. Right. Like it's great and we're there for the audiences, but we are not going to focus our resources in places where we don't see a great business outcome. At least we are always mindful of that. There may be a reason to have an incredible audience experience, and we certainly do that. But I think from a prioritization perspective, we're always thinking holistically.
Okay, and then how'd you morph from, it seems like it's video, and your role morphed to something different when AI emerged? Was that the next step? It went from the video to, was there something in there?
Along the way, it expanded to be business development across the business.
Okay.
So that was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I took over the the general BD, which was really exciting because now I got an opportunity to do deals that were across publishing, e-commerce, subscriptions.
Can you mention some companies you did the deals with? They're all public, right?
Well, we have a big Apple News deal.
Okay.
We work with Spotify on podcasting.
Right, and your CEO used to work at Spotify as well, right?
No, he worked at
Oh, not Spotify. It was the other one. Roger Lynch worked somewhere. Okay.
Pandora.
Okay.
Yeah,
The competition.
Exactly. E-commerce, we do, we have a very large affiliate business, which is run by an incredible team. And we have, over the years, pivoted from, not pivoted, but I would say enhanced our business to really also double down on subscriptions in some areas.
Okay.
So the subscription business for Condé Nast has grown. The New Yorker, for example, has a very robust.
Yeah, I think my wife pays like $69 a year, whatever the
it's an incredible product, yes. And it's very popular. So as our business has evolved, the things that I do and the things that we focused on pivot a little bit as well.
So now you're a big revenue stream. You bring in a shit ton of money.
We work hard with our partners to bring revenue to the table. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, at some point, now OpenAI, because I use this November of 22, launches ChatGPT, and the world fundamentally changes.
Yes.
And then at what point does someone say, Roger says, okay, Jen, now I need you to also help me think through this?
Well, I would say the world has always been changing.
Okay.
Right? Like,
I just feel like the day that Sam Altman launched ChatGPT is a line in the sand. That's the biggest change that we're seeing.
Yeah. I think that's probably a very fair thing to say. I think in my seat, I feel like...
And also, let me say one more thing. I also think that ChatGPT grew from 0 to 100 million users faster than any other company out there. Like, yeah, Facebook did it too, but that was so long ago and it took a long time.
There are 400 now, right?
There's 400 million weekly active users.
Incredible.
And there might be 500 or 600 million monthly active users. Only, because I just listened to a podcast on this, only a handful pay, and I think they're bringing in $4 billion in revenue a year and $9 billion in expenses.
Yeah.
And by the way, for the audience, we are taping this on February 26th in case any of the data changes.
Yeah, right? Good point. Yeah, I mean, for certain, it's a crazy disruption. And for us, we have to think about, and all publishers, like, I think one thing I think about a lot is that with some of the other disruptions, maybe they weren't as epic. Publishers sat maybe in a little bit more of a passive seat, and they let the evolution happen. They let the disruption happen, and then they decided how they were going to react. Social was not like Facebook, Google. Like, we just sometimes are the recipients of what happens. We're not driving.
Right. The $100 billion, trillion dollar companies are driving much of the ecosystem, and they can outspend every publisher combined 10 times.
And we just kind of come to the table and participate in the way that they tell us to participate.
And you hope there's a business model that works. Like Google Search, there was a business model.
Yeah, but it's diminishing.
Right. But Google Search, they took your content, but the quid pro quo was they'll send you traffic. Now with Gemini overviews and answers, you sort of don't get as much traffic anymore.
That's right. And so I think the publishers that are going to win here are going to be the ones that really lean in and think about...
Lean in meaning?
Like, move quickly and figure out ways to use AI to make money, to maybe enhance the content and enhance the user experience, and also maybe on the business side, add to productivity and efficiency for your team. But more importantly, I think to make money and figure out, like, what does content mean in the ecosystem of AI? What does data mean? And how can we participate?
Yeah. So my point of view, and I just wrote about this, was we're witnessing the greatest heist we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And that the LLMs have stolen every piece of content ever created in the history of the world and use it to train their models.
Yep.
And the people at the LLMs who steal the content are the most highly coveted people out there because they figure out how to get it. And there's nothing any publisher can do about that now. It's already stolen. They already have it all.
I agree with you.
But
I think there are things that you can do.
Okay, okay. Let's
So
get into that.
one is what we were trying to do is partner with them to get.
Well, there's only one company doing deals, right? OpenAI, pretty much.
There's more than one company doing deals,
Okay.
actually.
So there's Perplexity, Anthropic.
Yep.
There's Gemini, Google. Yep. There's who else?
I think you'll see Amazon.
Oh, Amazon, right? Amazon's going to do something, right?
Yep,
Anthropic is sort of Amazon, not Amazon.
Yes.
Right. Microsoft is sort of OpenAI, not
Yep. But separately, I think there'll be deals. I mean, I hope everyone comes to the table with deals. I think we see there's lots of litigation out there. I mean, we have to think about how we protect our content, but then also those things take time. So I also want to be proactive because there's a lot of value that's being created, and I think there should be room for us to participate in that. And I found that, the market is open to those conversations.
Right. And we were talking earlier about Spotify and the entire model for the music publishing.
Yep.
Where Spotify and Apple Music, and I guess Pandora as well, that they pay 70% of their top line revenue back to the labels.
Yep.
And isn't that a great business model that the publisher ecosystem would love to see?
Exactly. And like we think about those audio platforms, and like one interesting thing that we've done, and again, this is kind of like, how do publishers thrive in this world when, media is so fragmented, attention is so fragmented. So if we know that Spotify has a really attractive business model and a ton of users, how do we think about how we can partner with a company like that?
Right. Could Spotify be an LLM out there?
Absolutely. Or can we give them content? I think the answer is yes. Like, we have a tremendous amount of content that is written right now that through AI very easily becomes narrated audio.
Oh, maybe Spotify should come to our event we're having March 20th for your birthday.
Absolutely. Like, I think, you can use voice actors to record that today, but with AI.
Hey, producer Andrew, I love when I'm here and I actually learn a shitload by talking to someone. This is great.
But like, through AI is the voice narration has gotten so good because our standard.
Oh, I learn more from voice than I do reading now by far.
Yeah, and like
that's just the way I like to learn.
Not to say that but our standard for excellence is the bar is high at Condé for what we think we would put out, and we have found some third parties that are able to produce AI narrations that are excellent with the pronunciations.
11 Labs.
Yep. Yeah, they're one of them. And so I think that really, and very affordably, so that really creates opportunities for us to go to places like Spotify and participate and give them incredible content that they can't get anywhere else.
The consumption of content could be changing so much that we're not realizing it.
Right.
And there could be other models out there that will evolve.
But I think that, again, like if we think about, AI and the impending fear of AI and content creation, you could say, oh, well, if AI can create narrated audio and AI is going to create content, what's the risk, or how does a company like Condé Nast think about this? And I think bring it on, because we are only going to become more valuable in a world where endless content is being created by unqualified, creators. I think brands and authority
and trust
become even more important. And I think that is why there's business deals to be done and money to be made, because we retain our authority. And also, no matter what, no AI is ever going to have taste. They're never going to know what's cool.
I mean, like physically taste something, or you mean taste like good taste?
Good taste.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I think
that's
about,
cool.
That is cool. Yeah. That is influential. This matters.
No, they're binaries, ones and twos. They'll never figure it out.
They will never figure it out. And that's where we play, right? In the influence game,
You're good at this job.
Thank you. But I think it's important and true that we will always know that. And so if you want your LLM to have the latest or know what's cool, or if any reader or audience member wants to kind of know what a human wants, you can't replace that.
You're making me think of something I wrote recently, then I took it out. Like, I thought there were 5 LLMs, but there's really going to be 30. There's going to be all these other companies out there.
Yeah.
Spotify, IBM, Salesforce, Adobe is all going to build their LLM out, and they're not going to spend $100 billion. They're going to spend a couple billion. And maybe some of those LLMs actually decide to license content
Yes.
and they actually pay for it. And maybe those LLMs that license the content do a really good job. And maybe some of those LLMs say, hey, Condé Nast, I will write you a big ass check. I want your stuff exclusively.
And maybe I can even give them content that isn't available on the web. Because you talked about that everyone has stolen everything, but they haven't stolen everything. They've stolen what we have made available. They
Okay,
haven't stolen what's
so
in
that's a
our
really
head.
interesting point. So,
Yeah.
so I was talking to someone that, a piece of content gets made and that's what the LLMs have stolen.
Yes.
However, there's so much other data that they didn't
right.
take with that. There's the 10 different iterations of how it got there. There's the usage data on that.
Yep.
There's the why was this story given out? What does it mean? And
Yes.
there's all the other pieces that the LLMs don't have that if they got, maybe it becomes way more valuable.
Yes. There's this context. There's the behind the scenes. There's the recipe. If it's a recipe, it's like the substitutions. It's why.
Right. So I read a slide on this. I'm going to send it to you when we're done and you can edit it because I think this is another interesting way of looking at it beyond just traditionally how we look at it.
Yeah. And it's like kind of also, again, thinking about like where we sit in the ecosystem, how can we continue to create value, maybe new value and new monetization for our business? Because we're tapping into like what is the essence of the company. And it's like we have these incredible creatives.
But you also have all original content made in Condé, right?
We are not no AI generated content at all.
Right. Well, I also mean other publishers have content like someone will see a story about X and then they'll rewrite it.
Right.
Yours is pretty much all original.
That's right.
So it becomes way more valuable to the LLMs.
Yeah. And we have video and we have a robust podcast business. So we have audio, narrated audio, and we have like an incredible photo archive.
Okay. Let me ask you another question. We were talking about this before, if there's 5 LLMs out there and it's not going to be ad supported, could it be a subscription model? Could it be a Netflix, Spotify, I pay $39.99 a month and I get this? Do you think that's an option?
I do think that's an option. And I think that we are going to see very shortly companies coming out with additional subscription products, right? We already know, but that have different features, maybe more agentic, like how can I help you kind of tools rather than just enhanced search capabilities, right? Like a little bit more of a consumer take on why I should subscribe.
Do you think it'll be like Netflix and I subscribe it for myself, my whole family gets it and there's 5 different logins? Like, is it that model?
I think, that's interesting.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking like and if it's that model, do I spend $99 a month for that knowing I'm making everyone in my family, especially my kids, that much smarter?
I'll tell you this. I don't know. I haven't thought a lot about that, but I think for me personally, one of my favorite things about using AI is how quickly the AI learns about me. So I would not personally want
your parents
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to share a profile.
Right. I'm saying not you. I'm saying everyone gets different logins.
Profile. Yeah. Though then I would.
Right.
If everyone had a different login and a different profile.
Yeah, just like Netflix, where if I go on my daughter's Netflix, I'm like, I don't want to watch this crap.
Right. 100%. Yeah, I think that's definitely a model. Why not?
Oh, as I'm talking to you, like these things. Just came up.
We work with Apple News, and like they've been very successful with their bundles, their family bundles that give people access to lots of different services under the Apple umbrella.
Now, and if it's $99 a month for, assume Gemini for me and my family with separate logins, high. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Does that mean I will not sign up for OpenAI or Perplexity or Llama because it's only going to be one because it's so expensive? So, or is it like I have Netflix, Max, and Apple TV Plus, or is it where with music I just go with one service?
If I had to take a bet, I would think that you would go with one service.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because what we've learned from the industry is that the only reason people pay for multiple streamers is because of differentiated content, not the underlying technology or the service.
Right, but I think the underlying LLM data is the same, but then they put a different spin on top of it. Like,
it's going to have to be a real different spin.
Okay.
Maybe not for a power user, right? I'll pay for multiple. You'll pay for multiple. But that's more because I want to learn about the industry and I want to test them all and see which one I like the best. I don't know that the average consumer will need. I mean, tools are so great.
But you also want to, whichever one you pick with, you're going to probably use for a very long time.
That's right.
You want to pick the right one, not the wrong one.
That's right.
Because they're going to know so much about you, so much history, do so much for you, right? So Google Gemini might be at the lead with all this when they figure it out. And then this, I'm holding up my phone, this Apple iPhone.
Yeah.
Has the worst Siri AI experience in the history of mankind. And I'm doing a hot take prediction that I think in 2, 3, 4 months or 6 months, when my phone is over, I need a new phone, I will seriously think about getting the Google Gemini phone with AI built into it.
That's a crazy
And maybe
prediction.
if I buy the Google Gemini phone, I get Gemini for free because they make money for me there.
That's a great
And
call.
I do that. And it's this whole different business models, producer Andrew, are emerging that we even thought of.
Blowing up Apple's phone business.
There's the Apple
through the
monopoly.
Lens of AI. You're right. I think it's a great take.
Like that's just, it's like so many things can change. Like it's not doom and gloom, but it's a fundamental change in how publishers make money. And maybe it's a better business model that evolves at the end.
I hope Gemini comes to the table and partners with publishers.
Well, Google's been partnering with publishers in the past.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I hope so.
Okay, let me ask you a couple more questions
Yes.
before we wrap up.
Yeah.
What are your favorite hobbies?
I love Broadway musicals.
Oh, you want to, and you live where?
I live on the Upper West Side.
Upper West Side, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I have kids right now in sports.
Which
So my
sports?
soccer, flag football, and basketball, and
Okay.
debate. So sometimes I'm a debate coach.
Okay.
I mean, a debate judge. And I'm a soccer and football fan. But, you know, I love to do, I watch TV, I read. What are your favorite hobbies?
Oh, so mine are all athletic.
Oh, really?
Hold on. Dragon boat, paddling, right?
Really?
Dragon boat, 20 people on a dragon boat, 10 people on either side. I do pickleball all the time. I love it. I'm very competitive. I'm
I
trying to
like
get someone
pickleball.
to do a pickleball event in New York City. I do yoga, love yoga, love stretching, especially when you get old like me, right? I love listening to audiobooks. I consume a book a week pretty much.
Really?
Yes. And right now I'm listening to Fourth Wing.
Oh, that's impressive.
Right, but it's like 22 hours, so it might take me longer than a week for this one.
I'm starting a Mahjong class on next week with friends.
Oh.
Yeah.
My wife has an antique mahjong game.
Oh,
set.
really?
Yes.
Yeah, I do like to try to like learn new skills, and I like card games and I like games, so I'm excited actually to try that one. And I do like to do art and crafts, but to be really honest, like lately it's work and family and friends and socializing and all good things. but,
Excellent. So,
yeah.
producer Andrew, is there anything else we missed that you wanted to bring up? This is a pretty damn good conversation about the future.
Can I ask about what she thinks the future of media looks like?
Yeah, so that was my last question. We talked about a little bit, but you know, if you fast forward 5 years,
Yeah.
like any sense of what you think besides the hot take of the Google phone taking over with Gemini and it's free and you get the whole LLM in there? Is it, what else do you think?
Well, I do think that one thing we haven't talked about today is like we are certainly migrating towards owning our own audience in a way that we haven't had to in the past. And that's
What does that
largely
mean exactly,
because-
owning your own audience?
Well, it means that like we used to be able to rely on Google and Facebook
oh, right. So
to send us meaningful traffic in a way that we could predict and monetize. And as we've seen those platforms make different changes for their business that have really impacted publishers, we have had to really rethink how do we future proof. You know, we cannot rely on other people to generate our audiences for us. So that means, you know, we're making big investments in destinations and apps and subscriptions that have meaningful reason for people to come back all the time.
And very few publishers have over 50% of their traffic coming through the front door,
Yeah.
the homepage.
It's really, really challenging.
Yes.
And with AI summaries, you know, we are not seeing AI summaries meaningfully erode traffic right now. It's,
No one
it's a
is yet.
risk.
I talked to enough people, no one is
No one
yet.
is. But I think we all can see where this could go. And so we need to really think about how we protect against that. So I think 5 years from now, I hope that the great publishers that will survive have really figured out a way to change that number so that our audiences are finding us and coming to us directly, and that we're creating a meaningful enough reason for them to come, which is on us to do. That is, I think we will do it, but it's on us to do. And that's through, creating destinations that people want to come to.
So let me throw a scenario out for you and we'll close on this. What if we woke up one day and Google decided to blow up the entire industry?
Yeah.
And what if they just said, we're closing down search, everything's going to be Gemini. Instead of 10 or 15% of Gemini overview answers, it's going to be 100%. We're going to break our business model. Our stock's going to tank, but we're going to recreate the game. Everyone's going to use Gemini, and we're going to build a new advertising model out of this. And could that happen? Is that a real scenario? And that means that most publishers' traffic would probably drop 30, 40, 50% overnight, changing the entire ecosystem.
I mean, do consumers want that? I think what we've seen from...
I think consumers want answers, not links.
Consumers want answers, but they also want different voices. The reason why other platforms are successful is because not everyone just wants Google to decide. You want to hear from the creators that you like. You want it to be personalized to you.
But I think part of the model is Google gives you an answer, and then 10, 20, 30% you want to deep dive on it.
Yeah.
And when you deep dive and go to that publisher, you are 10 times more valuable because you are totally engaged.
Yeah.
It's a different user experience. And then your CPMs are 10 times what it is now. The business model just totally changes.
I mean, it's an interesting thing to think about, that's for sure.
The problem is there's too many interesting things to think about right now.
I know. I think for us, for publishers, we just have to be nimble and create amazing differentiated content and think about the industry in a way that is both proactive, but also we need to take a little bit of a protective stance also. I don't think we should be letting everybody crawl our content. We need to be being really smart about how we
that's
protect our
also
IP.
like whack-a-mole.
It is whack-a-mole, but we have to be whacking the mole, because if we just sit there and say oh well, everyone stole it already, we lost. No, I don't think that's where we're at. I think we continue to create amazing content. We continue to create value. And even if we start and we are protecting what we're creating going forward, it's still worth it.
So Jen, thank you so much. So Jen and I just met
recently.
Just met 3 months ago at CES, and you are now in my contacts as Condé Jen or Jen Condé. I forget which one.
Love it. It's perfect.
Jen Condé, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome conversation.
It was great. I appreciate being here.